This all started back in second grade, where my heart was set on one school, Tennessee State University. Going back in time, my siblings and my father would take yearly trips down to TSU for their homecoming weekend. I would look forward to that trip every year. We would miss school on Friday, wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and head down to Nashville. It would be a long voyage. Being only 9, I was very excited. So was my sister and I. I would stay up all night waiting to leave in the car. The night felt like it would last forever. So my sister and I played hand games with one another. We ate all night, and we would even have dance competitions. We would create a dance video to the latest star, then strut off our stuff, having our older sister judge who had the better one. But unfortunately, it all stopped when my mother came in the room and yelled at us, forcing us to go to sleep. However, that wouldn't work because we were still excited, and best of all, my mom wouldn't come to Nashville the next morning. She would have to stay back because of work, so it would be a daddy weekend, which was always the best. What could be better? We wouldn't have to do any chores, have any home-cooked meals, and best of all, no bedtime. I knew once we would get down there, my best friend Matray from Detroit would be there. And we would have another wonderful weekend. I think that's where she lived at that time. She moved around quite a bit. First, it was Chicago, then it was Virginia, Atlanta, LA, New York, Jersey, Kentucky, and finally, Detroit. My gosh, she has moved around quite a lot for a 9-year-old. However, she was my long-distance best friend, who would come to the famous TSU homecoming every year. I only saw her once out of the year, so time was precious to me. We spent every second with one another. She even slept in a hotel. Well, I think that's the real reason why her dad allowed herself and her sisters to sleep with us. Because her dad and my dad would leave at the hotel room every night at 8 p.m. and they wouldn't come back till 5 o'clock in the morning, thinking we wouldn't hear them wobble in. However, I've never seen my father that drunk before. All we could do was laugh. Now, my father isn't the violent or emotional type of drunk. He's very funny and quite goofy. Matray's father and my father would come in the room that early next morning, laughing and singing. They were both Kappa men, of course, so they were singing their chant. It was quite funny seeing two old men wobble around singing something that meant so much to them. Then, approximately 23 minutes, 43 seconds later, they both passed out simultaneously. Those days were never forgotten. The next morning was the big day, the TSU parade. It was broadcasted through the television and through the radio. However, the true excitement was actually being there live and in action. We would meet all of our daddy's classmates and some people who were in the school. The part I looked forward to was seeing all that eye candy on campus. Sure, they might have not been interested in a 9-year-old like myself, but fantasies are real, right? I mean, just because they never looked at me doesn't mean I couldn't look at them. Possibly because I was only 4 feet tall, trying to talk to them, and if they ever looked my way, they could have possibly went to jail, or my daddy would have knocked them out, or possibly both. Also, I would see all these older women. My gosh, I couldn't wait to grow up and be tall and beautiful just like them. My father, Matray's father, my twin older sister, brother, Matray, her 2 sisters, Mari, Mikai. Wow, that's a lot of people. We would take long walks down campus for the day activities. Walking down was pretty exciting. We would always walk down and see policemen on their horses. I would be the one to go up to the horse and try and pet it and climb right on it when a police officer wasn't looking. But when they saw me, they gave me this look, this distinguished look that was quite scary. I was terrified. I was too young to go to jail. Maybe I should just leave this pretty little horsey alone. But all of a sudden, they flashed a smile and let me pet the horse and even take a picture with it. Everyone was having a good time. It felt like a carefree type of day. That day, I knew I was attending Tennessee State University, after I graduated high school, of course. Even though that journey would not come until 8 years later. Yeah, that's a long time. Well, after the parade ended, there was a big festival right on campus grounds. That was where my daddy reunited with some of the people he hasn't seen since the previous homecoming. I would meet them all and have a big smile on my face. I knew they would have the best barbecue. So my dad would give us a little bit of money to go get some food, and we'd walk around campus, meeting new people, finding new friends, and eating all the food we could eat. It was quite funny because my dad let all of us walk around campus by ourselves. He trusted that school that much. I could tell that my father had great pride in his school, which enlightened me even more. As we were walking, including our parents at the time, we came across a man who looked quite drunk. I could never forget when he asked all of us, "Little girls, when you grow up, what college are you going to?" Of course, my face lit up and said proudly, "I'm going to Tennessee State University. I'm going to become a tiger." And he started singing the TSU song. I'm so glad I'm going to TSU. I'm so glad I'm going to TSU. I'm so glad I'm going to TSU. Where there's glory, hallelujah. Ooh, I'm so glad. So then he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a wad of cash. He looked through it and pulled out $10 whole and gave it to me. I was too happy and was dancing around with joy. Of course, my daddy laughed, and then I realized everyone in the South was much more carefree and happier than the people up north. They lived life to the fullest every day, and it felt like home. After the festival, we went inside to go to the gift shop. My dad let us go in there, and we could get one thing. That was probably the best time. I would spend about an hour to find the perfect gift for myself. It was a red t-shirt, and I still have it to this day. It had a big tiger on it, and the shirt read, "Future Tiger." I loved it so much that I wore it the last day before we left. The last event was the homecoming game. It was a big football game that everyone at the university went to. The Tigerettes were dancing on the field, and the cheerleaders were cheering their hearts out. It was a quite amazing sight to see. Then Mr. TSU and Miss TSU came out. She was very beautiful, and, well, Mr. TSU was quite fine. The mascot tiger would come around the stand to shake our hands and take pictures of the kids. As soon as I saw him, I jumped right on him, and of course my daddy got a picture of that. He felt like a giant, very muscular. After my dad had to pry me off the tiger, we would leave right around third quarter to miss some of the traffic. On our way out that time, my daddy looked at this one guy and looked at us, and he asked us a question. "Do you know who he is?" I was like, Daddy, I don't know who that is. My daddy was like, "That's Keith Sweat." I was like, who in the world is that? He told me, "You youngins will never know anything about that." I laughed, of course, and said, "All right, you don't know anything about that Raven Simone or even Usher." And he said nothing. He said there's nothing like old school. I wouldn't realize how right he was until later on in life. The end of our trip was coming to an end, and it was the worst feeling ever. I had to say goodbye to my best friend, Matrey, and I wouldn't see her for another year. We had to pack up everything in our hotel and leave back for Chicago. At that moment, I hated Chicago. It was no place like Nashville. Nashville was so pretty and relaxing, and Chicago was just not. We left for Chicago that morning and wouldn't see TSU for another year. Looking back to my trip created many lessons I carry on from my daily life. I learned that life is precious and to take many risks as I can to make my family, myself, and friends as happy as we can be. Tennessee State University was the best school at the world for me at that time. I never knew I would grow apart from the school, But it got real when I learned in my second semester of senior year that TSU was quite expensive, and of course, they don't give out a lot of money. So I either go to TSU and end up around $108,000 in debt, or go to a university that offered up much more money. Yeah, the sensible thing to do was take the other offer. And it's a school that I also fell in love with, so it kind of had its pros and cons. TSU will always be my home and unforgettable. The people, atmosphere, and festivities are the things that I miss the most, but following my heart is key. Therefore, the memories will never fade. Though it was a chapter that ended in my book, I can always open it back up and read from it from time to time. I will never forget Tennessee State University. Thank you.